In today's session, we are going to discuss about different type of methods in Web Dynpro ABAP. So the different type of methods are supply function is also a method, hook methods, general methods, interface methods, events and event handlers. These are also a type of methods. Okay, so let us just go into the SCAT transaction in SAP system and see what are all these methods. Before we discuss about today's topics, let us just revise once again what had been discussed in the last session. Okay, in the last session we had discussed about the Web Dynpro ABAP code wizard. Okay, so what is the advantage of Web Dynpro code wizard? It will generate the required code for an ABAPer without writing a manual code. Without a manual intervention, Web Dynpro code wizard will help you to generate the required code. Okay, so let us just go into see this is what we had discussed. Web Dynpro code wizard enables you to insert the following ABAP code fragments: method calls in same controller, method calls from used controllers, instantiation of used components, triggering the navigation, reading or setting the data from context node or to the context node or attribute. So you can do the message handling, you can trigger the portal integration. Okay, so this is the icon which is used for Web Dynpro code wizard. If you just click on this icon, it will open a pop-up Web Dynpro code wizard which will have two tabs. Okay, now let's just have a look at into the Web Dynpro component. Go into the change mode, just go to methods. Yeah, just place cursor somewhere. So this is the icon Web Dynpro code wizard. Just click on it, so you'll get these two tabs appear in the pop-up. So here context tab is used to access the context level information, and general tab is it will have all these radio buttons. Okay, depending on your requirement, you can choose the required radio button and proceed with the selection so that you will get the generated code as per your need. Okay, so let us just go to the today's topics. Different type of methods, hook methods. So what are these hook methods? This is one of the important interview question. What are the hook methods? Okay, hook methods are the methods which are created as default when Web Dynpro ABAP component has been created. Hook methods are the methods which are created by default when Web Dynpro ABAP component has been created. Okay, so let us go into SAP system. Okay, see, now this is the Web Dynpro component. Go to component controller, go to methods tab. You will see all the hook methods. See, the one which is in ash color, the methods which are in ash color are the hook methods. Okay, this method we had created as a supply function, but we have 5 different methods which are called as hook methods at the component controller level. Okay, so let us discuss about each method. wdo init, wdo exit, wdo before navigation, wdo application state change, wdo post processing. Okay, now what is wdo init? wdo init is the method which gets executed when application has been opened or when component has been instantiated. Okay, so as I told you, whenever we execute the to see the output of what we have designed the screen, we have to execute the Web Dynpro application. So Web Dynpro application is created always with respect to component and interface view. So under this interface view, we will embed multiple views. Okay, so we should have at least one view in the window is also called as an interface view. Okay, now when you launch the application, first of all, instance of the component has been created, and then window, and then view. So now when component has been instantiated, when instance has been created for a WebDynpro component, then www init method will be executed. Okay, so www init method is executed only once in the lifetime of the WebDynpro component. Okay, www init method is executed only once in the lifetime of the WebDynpro component. Okay, so now www exit. So www exit, this method gets executed when you are exiting the component, or when you are closing the WebDynpro application. Okay, when you are closing the application, www exit method is executed. Now the purpose of www init is like data declarations. If you want to declare any global declarations, or if you want to create any instances, you can do instance creation in www init. And www exit can be used for clearing the variables or clearing the internal table data as such. Okay, now we are clear with www init and www exit. And coming to the www before navigation. Okay, you see the description here. For every method you will see the description. www init is the controller initialization method. When WebDynpro component has been initiated, then this method gets executed. Controller cleanup method. Okay, when you are exiting the application, www exit of the component controller gets executed, and this can be used for clearing the variable or clearing the internal table data or clearing the context. Okay, now www before navigation. Error handling before navigation through application. This method is executed when you are navigating from one application to another application. When you are navigating from one application to another application, this method gets executed. So this method can be used for validations. I mean, let's say for example, you are in application 1, and application 1 has three fields which are mandatory or which must be filled. So without filling those data, you are trying to navigate from application 1 to application 2. Then if you write the required code in www before navigation, it can validate whether the required fields are filled or not, so that if they are not filled, it will throw a error message and will not allow you to navigate from application 1 to application 2. If the required fields are if the required validations are passed, then it will allow you to navigate from application 1 to application 2. So in such scenarios, you can write the required code in www before navigation. So these are like the standard hook methods which you can use to plug in your required code depending on the scenario. Okay, so www application state change. I mean, this method gets executed. I mean, there are different type of plugs. I mean, different type of plugs available here in window. Just go to window. Here you will see inbound plugs and outbound plugs. Okay, so if you just go to inbound plug, there are different type of standard, startup, resume. So different type of plugs are available. So whenever you change, I mean, whenever you hit the inbound plug are of different type, and whenever you change the application state, then this application www application state change gets triggered. Okay, we don't much use this www application state change method, but just please keep in mind that this gets executed whenever the application state has been changed. Okay, so application state will be changed only when you hit the suspend or resume plug. Okay, so this, see this description, handling for suspending and resuming an application. Okay, now the last method is www post processing. Okay, so there is a different concept called post processing framework, or I mean, it is just something like just displaying an output or processing an output type. So in such scenarios, www post processing method gets executed. Okay, so here in this particular component controller, we mostly use www init, www exit, and www before navigation. In most of the scenarios and most of the cases, we mostly deal with these three different hook methods. Okay, so important interview question is, what are the hook methods? available in the component controller, then the answer must be wdo init, wdo exit, wdo post processing, wdo before navigation, and wdo application state change. Okay, these are the hook methods available in the component controller. Now go to the view controller. See, this is the view controller. Here if I go to change mode, okay, so here apart from the actions, the remaining all are hook methods, okay, which are in ash color. But here you see on action display and on action display to on action input underscore enter. These are the action methods that we had created as part of the screen layout. You see here. So these are all not hook methods. Okay, so only this wdo after action, wdo before action, wdo exit, wdo init, wdo modify view, and wd on context menu. So these are the 6 hook methods available in the view controller. Okay, when view controller has been created, these 6 methods are come by default. Okay, so for every view controller, these 6 methods will be there. See here. So in v underscore main, these are these 6 methods which comes by default when view controller has been created, when view has been created. Okay, so now what is the purpose of each method? wdo init is the method which gets executed when view has been initialized. Okay, wdo init is the method which gets executed when view has been initialized for the first time. View has been initialized for the first time. It means, let me show you here. Let's say when let's say this is the Web Dynpro application which I'm executing. Okay, so when I execute the Web Dynpro application, you see the first method gets executed is wdo init method of the component controller. Wdo init of the component controller. Then window wdo open. Okay, here you see here also you have wdo init. Then wdo init of window controller gets executed. Then wdo init of view controller gets executed. That we will see. I'll show you by keeping a breakpoint. Okay, now just go on to the view again, view controller, go to methods. So wdo init is executed only once in the lifetime of a view. Wdo init is the first method which gets executed when view has been initialized for the first time, and wdo init is executed only once in the lifetime of a view. Okay, so now what is wdo exit? So wdo exit is executed when you are navigating out of view. Okay, when you are navigating out of view, wdo exit method gets executed. Here also wdo init and wdo exit can be used for data initialization and data cleanup. Okay, so now here wdo modify view, this is more important. Wdo modify view, wdo modify is the method which gets executed before an action has been triggered. I mean wdo modify is the only method which gets executed always always whenever action is performed in the view. Okay, so it will be executed, and this method will be used for dynamic programming. Okay, this method is executed, this method is used for dynamic programming. You see this description of this method for modifying the view before rendering. Okay, so method for modifying the view before rendering in the sense, like let's say for example, uh, when you have launched the Web Dynpro application, then the first wdo init gets executed, and then wdo modify view also gets executed, and then after opening the Web Dynpro application, within the Web Dynpro application, if user performed any action, then wdo init will not be executed, but wdo modify view will get executed. Okay, so before any action is executed, or whenever there is an action performed in the Web Dynpro application, so wdo modify view will get executed. Okay, for the during first time of the Web Dynpro application, and in the middle of the Web Dynpro application, if any action is performed, then also wdo modify view will get executed. Now coming to the wdo before action. Okay, whenever there is an action performed in the WebDynpro application, first wdo before action method gets executed, then action method, then wdo after action method gets executed. So it means whenever a user performs an action in the WebDynpro application, altogether three methods gets executed. One is wdo before action, then action method, then wdo after action. Okay, so now the purpose of wdo before action is to put any validations which will allow the action to be executed successfully. Let's say for example, mm, there is a input field, and beside that input field a search button is there, and then uh, without entering the value in input field, if user presses search button, then validate you can validate whether input field is filled or not in the wdo before action. Okay, so you can write any validations in the wdo before action method, and then if the validations are passed, then actual action method gets executed, and whatever the logic you have written to get the data, to retrieve the data from database which satisfies the selection criteria, that logic you can write it in the actual action method. Okay, now wdo after action method, I mean you can write the required logic whichever needs to be processed after action has been executed successfully. That code you can write it in the wdo after action. Okay, now wdo on context menu. So this method gets executed whenever you just do right click on the WebDynpro application. Okay, whenever you right click on the WebDynpro application, this wdo on context menu gets executed. Okay, here in this out of all these six hook methods, we mostly use wdo init, wdo modify view, and very rare wdo before action can be used. Okay, so what you can do in wdo before action can also be done in the actual action method. So either we can use wdo before action, or can be written the required logic in within actual action method also. So here we mostly use work with the wdo init and wdo modify view. Okay, now coming to the window methods tab. Here you see four methods are hook methods: wdo exit, wdo init, wdo on close, and wdo on open. Okay, so here we have four methods created as default methods which we call it as hook methods. Okay, so wdo on open gets executed whenever window has been displayed on the screen. Okay, wdo on open gets executed whenever a window has been displayed in the application. Okay, but we don't see actual window, but within that window whatever the views which are embedded in the window are displayed in the WebDynpro application. Okay, so wdo on when wdo on close gets executed whenever you close the WebDynpro application. Thus I mean window gets also closed when you close the application. Okay, now wdo init and wdo exit. wdo init method gets executed when window has been initialized for the first time. Okay, here also you can use the controller initialization for data declaration or anything as such. wdo exit, whenever WebDynpro application has been closed, then you can wdo exit gets executed. I mean here wdo exit can be used similar to component controller and view controller cleanup method. You can clear the internal table or clear the work area or clear the context. Such things you can do in the wdo exit. Okay, so these are the hook methods. Let us show you the diagram. Okay, before to that I'll show you hook methods. Every controller has a number of default methods that enable the developer to interfere in, sorry, okay, Okay, every controller has a number of default methods that enable the developer to interfere in the program flow at certain times. Okay, to put the user specific code depending on the method sequence execution, you can write your own code in these hook methods. So in their initial state, these methods do not contain statements, do not contain any ABAP code. The methods are called in a sequence specified by the phase model, and the logic added by developer is executed. Okay, so developer can write his own code so that depending on the phase model, depending on the sequence specified by the phase model, these methods gets executed and the logic written in those methods gets executed accordingly. So the methods provided by the respective controller depending on the controller type. So controller types are, we have 6 different controller types: component controller, custom controller, view controller, window controller, configuration controller. Okay, so interface controller: component controller, custom controller, interface controller, view controller, window controller, and configuration controller. So I mean, here the hook methods are only created in 4 different controllers: component controller, view controller, window controller, and custom controller. But custom controller needs to be created manually, but when custom controller has been created, only 2 hook methods gets created as default. Okay, now in the next slide we see, so these are the hook methods. See, wdo init. So wdo init is the method which gets executed when, if it is component controller, when component has been initialized, then wdo init gets executed. So wdo init method is there in component controller, view controller, window controller, and custom controller. So wdo init method is common across all these 4 different controllers. Now wdo exit. Wdo exit method is common across all these 4 controllers. You see, it is present in component controller, view controller, window controller, and custom controller as well. So another important interview question is, what are the hook methods which are available in all the other controllers? Okay, so they are wdo init and wdo exit. Okay, so in during SAP certification, one of the multiple choice question could be like, this method is present in custom controller and component controller. So then the one of the multiple choice could be wdo init and wdo exit. Okay, so you will have to choose accordingly. Now coming to the wdo before navigation, this hook method is available only in the component controller, but not available in the view controller, nor window controller, nor custom controller. wdo post processing, this hook method is available in only component controller. wdo modify view, this method is available only in the view controller. wdo before action, this is available only in the view controller but not available in other controllers. wdo on close, this hook method is available in only window controller. Okay, so these are the hook methods and their classification across all other controllers. Now we see once again what is hook method, what are these hook methods. So see, wdo init, this method is called immediately and only after the instantiation of the controller, whether it is a component controller or view controller or window controller or custom controller. So this method is called immediately and only after the instantiation of the controller. Here you should implement statements that are for initializing the controller. I mean, if you would like to create an instance of a class, you can create instances, okay, in wdo init. wdo exit, this method is called at end of a controller's lifetime and should be used for executing closing statements. Okay, so when you close the Web Dynpro application, wdo exit method of all the controllers gets executed, whether either you write the code or you don't write the code, but this method is executed for sure. If there is any logic written in the method, that gets executed. If there is no logic written in the method, then nothing will be executed, but method will be executed for sure. Okay, so that is how the sequence has been defined to be implemented, defined to be executed by the Web Dynpro framework. Okay, WDD before navigation. This method is run by the component controller before the navigation stack is processed. Okay, here you can validate input and influence the navigation accordingly. When you are navigating from one application to another application, if you want to perform any validations which are which will stop or process the navigation, you can write the required logic in WDD before navigation. WDD on close. This method is called when a modal pop-up is closed. Here you can execute terminating statements for the data shown in the pop-up or for your input. So this method gets executed when you are working with the pop-ups. Now see WDD post processing. This method is used to perform exception handlings of the supply function methods. With this method, no more changes should be made to the context. Okay, during WDD post processing, you cannot make any changes to the context node or context attribute. WDD modify view. This method is called before the view is rendered. Here you have the option to directly access the view element objects. This is mainly applied in dynamic programming. Now last one is WDD before action. This method is run before the action triggered by the user is executed. User input should be verified when this method is used. You have the option to access the context and to output messages via the message manager. If you want to perform any validations before the actual action method gets executed, you can write the required code in WDD before action. Okay, so what is the sequence of methods gets executed that we see now? Okay, so this is the phase model. Okay, this is the phase model. Here a sample example has been given. User input, he will enter some name, and then validation of user input. Here the validation will happen. Then if validation is passed, it will go to the controller context, and then WDD before action, which gets executed to validate whether the user input is correct or not. Then it will execute accordingly. If it is failed, error message will be displayed. If it is not, then WDD before navigation method gets executed to achieve the navigation, and then it will perform the navigation. Then before the view is displayed, WDD modify view gets executed. Application developers can modify the view dynamically. So dynamic programming can be written in the WDD modify view, and then WDD post processing gets executed. Okay, so this is in a typical Web Dynpro application, the entire concept has been covered, but we will see in the debugging what are the hook methods, what are the sequence of methods gets executed when Web Dynpro application has been launched. We will see. We just go to SCAT transaction code. I'm just going to keep a breakpoint in all the methods. Go to component controller, go to WDD init, and just see by default a empty method has been created. Okay, so just keep a breakpoint. You have to remember one thing, that whenever you debug the Web Dynpro application, you have to place a external breakpoint. Set external breakpoint. Okay, now I have placed the WDD init breakpoint in WDD init method of component controller. Now I am going to v underscore main view. Here also in the methods WDD init method, I will place a breakpoint. Okay, see it. I will also place a breakpoint in WDD modify view. Okay, now I will go to w underscore main, go to methods, WDD init, place a breakpoint. See, it has this w underscore main. So now execute this Web Dynpro application. Now it will open in the debugging mode. See, before output has been displayed, see, I still didn't get the output, but component controller WDD init is the first method which gets executed when component has been initialized for the first time. You see, I kept a breakpoint in the wd init method of, you can see what method, what controller, and what component at which line. Okay, so now let me just press F8. You see, then the next sequence is w underscore main, because here you see, first when you open the Web Dynpro application, the parent is component and then interface view, and within that interface view you have views embedded. Yes, so this is the sequence. Right, now you see, press F8, v underscore main wd init method. So the sequence is, first wd init method of component controller gets executed, and then wd init method of window controller gets executed, and then wd init of view controller gets executed. Now see, now I am just pressing F8 again. You see, now wd modify view of the view gets executed. Okay, now that's all. Press F8. Now you see the Web Dynpro application output. You see, this is the Web Dynpro application output has been displayed. Now what I will do, I will just press some value here and created by kvh021 and press enter. Now there is no on action created. So let's say, for example, let me go to Web Dynpro v underscore main, go to change mode, created by. So for created by input field, I am going to create an action for on enter. When I press keyboard enter button, this action method gets executed. So I'm just creating an action. Click OK. Go to this action, activate it. So go to created by, place a breakpoint here. Now let me open the Web Dynpro application once again. Now see, once again the init methods gets executed. It went to debugging. See, component wd init method of component controller gets executed. If you write any code in the wd init method, that gets executed now. But since I have not written any code, this just empty method gets executed. Now just press F8. Now wd init method of window got executed. Then one second. Okay, it has been removed. Then so there were no breakpoints. However, somehow breakpoints were removed from view, so that is why it was not executed. But still, let me show you once again, just to make sure that the wd init and wd modify view method of view got executed. Okay, so see, just see the sequence, then window, then view, then wd modify view. That's all. Okay, now I'm just entering some value here, Bharat, and press enter. Now see, so none of the other methods gets executed, but only wd modify view gets executed. Okay, on action created by, and then see, wd modify view gets executed. So wd modify view gets executed whenever there is an action performed in the view, or whenever there is a screen rendering, then wd modify view gets executed. So here in this case, it is not belongs to action, but there is an application rendering happening behind the screen at the Web Dynpro ABAP framework level. So that is why it has triggered wd modify view method of view. Okay, so right, so this is what the sequence of methods executed. Okay, so these are all the hook methods. Now we see a different type of methods. See, these are instance methods. Instance methods are methods which you can create in the each controller, similar to like this. Let me just go here, go to method list. So here you can create any method, test1, test2. So something like this, you can create the methods. Here, similar to object oriented programming, here we don't have a static method or instance methods. By default, all of them are instance methods only. Okay, so here you developer can create his own methods for modularizing the code. Okay, and then event handler methods. What are these event handler methods? How to create the event handler methods? See, these are the different type of methods: method, event handler, supply function. How to create a supply function we had seen already in the last session. Let me show you once again. Go to context. Yeah, these are component controller context, so you have to go to component controller, or just go to v underscore button. Here I have local context. See, these are the local context. So here, if I create a supply function, let me show you first. See how many supply functions are there in this view controller. There is no supply function as of now. Now I'm just going to context, supply data. Okay, I'm just going to create a supply function here. You can specify the supply function name directly in the properties of context node. Press enter. So now if you come to methods tab, you will see supply underscore data type supply function has been created. So this is the supply function method. Okay, what is the supply function we had discussed in the last session? Supply function can be used to populate the default values into the context node. Okay, and supply function can also be used in conjunction with singleton node. Okay, so singleton node is a separate concept which we will discuss at end of the training. But right now we see what are the event handlers. What are the event handlers? Again, it is similar to object oriented programming. In object oriented programming also we can raise an event, and to whenever there is an event raised, to catch the event you can create the event handler. Similar to whenever there is an event triggered from the Web Dynpro application, to handle that event you have to create the event handler. Okay, test event. Okay, now select this, and here you can choose it as event handler. Okay, so here the difference between normal method and event handler is, see, for let's say I am creating a normal method, test method. Okay, see, this is normal method. Here I don't get anything here. Okay, you cannot assign a event to a normal method, but for a event handler you can assign an event. See, here it has given the information as used controllers do not have events. If you have any events created, then you can assign that event to this event handler. But if you create, I mean, here see, it is editable, it is not editable, since this is normal method. But still, if you press F4, it will give you a message: event and controller can only be maintained for event handlers. Okay, so event can only be assigned to a event handler, which is this. Okay, so that is what the purpose of event handler. Now we will see a practical scenario to work with event handlers. Okay, but this is what the event handler concept. Now let me activate the Web Dynpro application. Yes, and let me activate it. Now we will see some object oriented concepts, because in Web Dynpro ABAP, the entire Web Dynpro ABAP framework has been developed using the object oriented paradigm only. So we should also know object oriented concepts. We don't have to know the much of in depth of object oriented, but if we know how to call a method, how to call a static method, how to call a instance method, how to call a attribute, so that if we know, that is enough to work with the Web Dynpro ABAP. So now let me just show you how to create a class. Go to SE24. So class, I mean, as per the MVC architecture, in MVC architecture, to satisfy the model, you can create a class, and within that class you can create methods. Within that methods you can write the select statements, OpenSQL statements, which will actually get the data from database, or you can use the OpenSQL statements to put the data into database, or you can call the function modules within the methods and blah blah blah. So here class can be used as a model. Okay, as per MVC architecture, class can be used as a model. Okay, right. Now as per Web Dynpro ABAP, we have component controller which will act as a controller in MVC architecture, and we have view which will act as a view in MVC architecture. But till now we have not seen the model, so now we are going to create a model. So class can be used as a model here. Now I'm just going to create ZCL test FSN. Okay, I'm going to create a class create class test. So here you can define the instantiation of class. I'm selecting it as public. So here you can choose as a usual ABAP class. So here you can choose as final or not final. Hope you already know what is mean by final. If you create a class as final class, it cannot be inherited. Okay, so you can remove or you can keep it as it is, but for the time being I'm just removing the final. Click on save. So local object, now this is the class. You can create the method 1 or method add. I will say add. Okay, here in level you can set whether it is a static method or instance method. The difference between static method and instance method is to access the static method you don't have to create any instance. Okay, you don't have to create any object for this class. But if it is instance method, you have to create an object. By using object only you can access this instance method. Okay, so I'll create instance method and I will create a static method. So visibility, there are three different visibilities: public, protected and private. So what is public, what is protected, what is private? Public objects are accessible within the class, inherited class and outside the class. Okay, public objects, public methods or public attributes can be accessed within the class, inherited class and outside the class. But if it is protected objects, if it is protected method or protected attribute, then it is accessible within the class and inherited class only. It protected methods or protected attributes cannot be accessed outside the class. Now private. So what if the method is private? Private methods or private attributes are accessible only within the class. Private objects are not exposed outside the class. Okay, so once again I'm repeating, if the method has been created as a public, that particular method can be accessed within the class, inherited class and outside the class. If a particular method has been created as a protected, it can be accessible within the class and inherited class. If the method is created as private, it is accessible within the class only. So now I'm just creating it as public. Okay, now you can specify addition of two numbers. Okay, so I would say subtraction, I would say static, protected, no, one second, I would say public, subtraction of two numbers. Now I would say method 1, which is instance method, and then protected method. Okay, now I would say method 2, instance method again, private. Okay, now I have instance method public, subtract, static method public, method 1 instance protected, method 2 instance private. Now I will show you. Activate it. Now create some program, test program, Z OO ABAP FSN training. Okay, create OO ABAP training. Type executable program, click save, save as local object, activate it. Now I would like to access the add method of this class. So if I want to access the add method of this class, since add method is a instance method, I have to create an instance of this class first. Without creating an instance of this class, without creating an object for this class, I will not be able to access the instance methods within this class. Now let me show you here. So data, to create an instance, first of all I should create a reference variable, LO class type ref2. So what is the class name? This is the class name. Okay, now how to create an object, how to create an instance? So we have to use the syntax create object and reference variable name. Now using this instance, using this object, we can access the instance methods. I'll show you here. So before to that, I will create some parameters for this method. Okay, iv underscore iv1 importing optional I iv2 importing I and ev exporting. It is just similar to function module only. Parameters I. Okay, now I go to methods. Yes. Okay, here I'll write the logic. ev is equal to iv1 plus iv2. Okay, addition logic. So now activate it. Now see, keep a breakpoint here. Now here you can use the pattern button to call the method of a class. ABAP object patterns, click OK. Instance, this is the instance. What is the class name? This is the class name. And what is the method to be accessed? Add. Okay, now just press OK. Now see, iv1 is equal to say 11. Now say 22, and then now you can define data lv underscore sum type I. Okay, now write lv underscore sum. Okay, activate it. Now let me just keep a breakpoint here. Okay, whenever an instance has been created, it will create a unique number. Okay, I'm just pressing F8. See here, what is the when create object, when instance has been created, a unique number has been generated. That unique number is 3 for this class. See, for this class. Now press F5. See here, iv1 has come, iv2 has come, 11. So now this addition logic here, iv1 plus iv2 equal to ev. So I'm just pressing F5 again. See ev now, ev is 33. So now it will go back. See what is the lv underscore sum, 33. So press F8. See 33. 33 has been displayed as output. So this is how we access the instance class. Okay, now what if I don't create an instance? What if I don't create an instance? Activate it. Now press F8. See, hello underscore class is initial. I don't have any instance, but I'm just trying to access the instance method. Then it will give a dump. Okay, it will give a dump. Please press F5. See, short dump. What is short dump? Access via null object reference not possible. So it means to access the instance methods of a class, you should have instance created in the program. Okay, so let me go here. Now I will show you how to access the static methods. Okay, okay, something. Now here I'm going to access the instance method. Go to pattern, ABAP objects patterns. So here to access the static method, I don't have to specify the instance. Go to, sorry, press F4. So here subtract is the static method. See how it is displayed when static method has been accessed. So see the difference. It is single arrow, it is the double arrow. So it is the identifier. So single arrow is the identifier to access the instance methods. So double arrow is the identifier to access the static methods. Now press F8. Sorry, activate it. Keep a breakpoint here and just go here and keep a breakpoint. Okay. So now press F8. So just press F6. Okay. It's already breakpoint is there. So just remove it and F7. Now see, with I don't need any instance here, but just press F5. Yes, it went to subtract method. Okay, so without, I mean, to access the static methods, you don't need any instance. Press F8. So that's all. Okay, now we have seen how to access the instance methods. We have seen how to access the static methods. Now we will see accessing the protected and private methods. F3. Now I have protected method and private method. As per the definition, protected methods cannot be accessed outside the class. Okay, but still I am just trying to access it. See, but they are still instance methods. So I should have instance. I have instance. So lo underscore class. Press F4 here. Select method 1. Press OK. Now see, save, and just try to activate it. See, errors or problems discovered during check. What do you want to do? Display errors. See, method 1 is unknown or protected or private. So you are trying to access the protected method outside the class. So this is not possible. So that is what it is saying. But if you just comment this, it will allow you to activate it. See, it is activated. But if you uncomment it, if you try to activate it, it will throw a message. Method 1 is unknown or protected or private. Okay. Once again, now I will try to access the private method. So method 2. Press OK. Now save and try to activate it. It will give the same error again. Method 2 is unknown or protected or private, but it is a private method. If you comment it and if you activate it, it will be activated. So this is how you cannot access the protected and private methods outside the class. But as per the definition, protected methods can be accessed within the class and can be accessed by the inherited class. Now I will show you that also. So now I will create a inheritance, inh, create. So here if you just click here, you can create an inheritance. Okay, inherited class. Click here. Yes, here you can specify the superclass name, public, and now you can just remove the final. Click on save. So local object. Now see how many methods has come from superclass. When you create an inheritance, all the methods of the superclass are displayed in the inherited class. But how many classes were there in the superclass? There were 4 methods. Those were add, subtract, method 1 and method 2. But method 2 has not come to the inherited class because the method 2 was private method. Okay, method 2 was private method. So it has not appeared in the inherited class. So you cannot access the private methods in the inherited class. So we have proved that the definition is correct. But method 1 can be accessed in the inherited class because it is protected. Okay, so this is what the inheritance and accessing the instance methods, static methods, protected and private. Okay, so this is enough to work with the Web Dynpro ABAP. So now we will access the same class, same methods in Web Dynpro from Web Dynpro ABAP. Now what I will do, I will go to attributes. So here to access the instance methods of that particular class, I should have instance created in Web Dynpro ABAP. So I am just creating mo underscore class. So here public reference to. What is meant by public checkbox here is, so public, when you make this particular attribute as public, this particular attribute is accessible in the entire Web Dynpro component. If you uncheck this public, this attribute will become local for this component controller. Okay, if you make this public, so this attribute is accessible in the entire Web Dynpro component. Since we are creating a reference variable, I have checked this checkbox reference to, and then the class name is, this is the class name. Okay, right. So why are we creating this attribute in component controller? Because whatever you create in component controller, that becomes global across the component. So this is accessible in the entire Web Dynpro component. So that is why I am creating in the component controller. Done. Now I will go to methods. Now I have reference variable created, but I should create an instance for this. Go to www init. Okay. create object. Now in the initial sessions I told you how to access this attribute. See, wd wd underscore this. What is the purpose of wd underscore this? Default attribute which is created when WebDynpro component has been created. This attribute is used to access the component controller objects. To access the component controller objects, we should use this wd underscore this attribute. So this is for this attribute. Since this is reference variable, we don't have to create any instance for this attribute, because WebDynpro framework itself will create an instance for this reference variable. See, this is self reference to local controller interface. So for web component controller, in the background WebDynpro framework will generate an interface. Okay, so this is self reference. So now to access this attribute, we have to use the wd underscore this. So now come here, create object wd underscore this, then mo underscore class. So this is how we access the attributes of the local controller. Save and activate it. Now why are we writing this code in wd init? Because when you launch the WebDynpro application, for sure this wd init of this component controller gets executed. Either you display a view or not display a view, but for component wd init of component controller gets executed for sure when WebDynpro application is launched. So that is why I am writing this code in wd init of component controller. So here you can remove the breakpoint. Now let me put a breakpoint here. Now let me launch the WebDynpro application. Refresh. You see it went to debugging. Yes. Now see, till now it is initial. There is no instance created. But now see, press F5. Yes, instance has been created. So similar to ABAP programming that we had done, instance has been created with this statement, create object. Okay, now since instance has been created, now you can use wherever you want it. Okay, so let me just go here, v underscore main. What I will do here is I will just design I will what I will do is, okay, so now in the methods, in the wd init, I can call the add method. Okay, I can call the add method. Now see, so now from view controller, if I want to access the component controller attribute, how can I access the component controller attribute? Using this attribute. See this? This is the attribute, default attribute which gets created when WebDynpro component has been created. So this attribute is used to access the component controller level objects. See now, here I will go to pattern again, ABAP objects patterns. Here instance is wd underscore comp underscore controller mo underscore class. Why see, the instance has been created for reference variable. What is the reference variable? mo underscore class is the reference variable which was created in the component controller. So since it is created in the component controller, this is global. But where is the, we have created the instance in wd init method of component controller. So instance has been created. So but it is there in the component controller. To access the component controller attribute, I have to make use of the wd underscore comp underscore controller attribute. Okay, so that is why I have created this instance as this. I have mentioned this. Now what is the class name? This is the class name. This is the class name. Now I have to access the instance method add. Now just press OK. Now see. Now here also I will pass 1 second. Okay. Okay. Triple two. I will say here. I will say 100. Okay. Now home lv underscore sum. But now I have not declared this lv underscore sum, so I am just declaring it type I. Okay, so just save it and activate it. Now let me keep a breakpoint here and I will show you now. Open the Web Dynpro application. Now launch it again. So www init of component controller is executed. So it is creating the instance F5. So instance has been created. Press F8. Now it will come again. Just remove this. Save. Press F8. Now it has come here. See this. Now this is the instance. Same instance, right? So same instance. So in component controller also, when instance was created, the unique identifier was 142. So here also the instance is 142 only. Okay, so now we are calling the add method. Just press F5. It will go to class. See this. This is the class. This is the method. So here you say method. This is the method at line number 3. Okay. So now what is the IV1 100? IV1 is 100. IV2 is 222. That this is what the values we have passed from the Web Dynpro. And now what is EV? EV is null. Just press F5. See it has summed. 322 is the sum. Now press F7. See it has come back to Web Dynpro component. Now since LV and LV, what is the LV underscore sum? 322. So now if you want to display this output in the Web Dynpro application, now you can display. But I have not written any code. I have not written the data binding. So now what I will do, I will do the data binding. See, I'm just going to place some UI element here. Text view, txv, sum, text view. Okay, just press say row head data. Okay, so now I will create some context node, or you can create a context attribute alone. Text sum, say I, type, click OK. Now go to layout, just do the context binding with this context attribute. Okay, so now go to methods. Now do the data binding. Click on Web Dynpro code wizard, context. Now we are trying to set the value to the context attribute. Select the required context attribute. Now we are going to set the value to this particular context attribute. Click OK. Code will be generated. Now here you pass the LV underscore sum. So because the summation value is stored in LV underscore sum. So here you can pass it here. Now activate it. Now execute the Web Dynpro application. Now it will go to debugging. Now press F8. Instance has been created. See, 322 has come. Okay, the output is displayed on the Web Dynpro application. Okay, so this is how you can access the classes, methods. Okay, but here we have done some wrong. Okay, we are not supposed, I mean here, okay, this is fine, but because this is a local logic. So in the add method we have written the just addition logic, but in case if you are trying to pull the data from database or pushing the data into database, we should have OpenSQL statements. When in such cases you are not supposed to call the model directly from the view. Okay, so this is not the best practice, and this is violation of MVC architecture. Okay, so how do we have to do? We have to do like this: go to component controller, go to methods, add. So here again in the add, create parameters iv1 importing I, iv2 importing I, ev exporting I. Okay, so from now here, from here we should call the model. Okay, so go to pattern. So here now, since we are in the local controller, we have to make use of the wd underscore this. So same method, call here. Yes, now here iv underscore 1, iv underscore 2, ev. Now go to v underscore main. Now we should call component controller method. Now we should call component controller method, but we are not supposed to write like this. We are not supposed to call the access the model directly from view. Okay, now go to Web Dynpro code wizard, because we are trying to access the component controller method. So we have to select this radio button. So what is the component? This is the component name, this is the component controller, and we are trying to access the method add. Okay, we are calling the component controller method. So as per MVC architecture, view is responsible to display the data only, just data processing, I mean just to display the data. View doesn't care how data has been retrieved from the database or how data will be sent to database, but model will does database retrieval and data saving, but controller will control the communication between view and model. Controller is a bridge between model and view. So all the communications to model from view or from model to view, so it should trigger via controller. So here component controller will take care of a controller place, view just to display the data, and model has to interact with the database. So that is why here we are calling the component controller method. Okay, click OK. So now see here, now you can pass 100, and now 1 not 1. Now here lv underscore sum, control s, control f3,